Well, are we having fun yet? I tried to pull this fuel line off and the fitting came out. So, they're just a press fit. You can use a little epoxy to secure that in again, but the other thing was the float actually was, even the seat was stuck when I pulled this apart. The floats were hanging up like that. Wouldn't move at all. You can see the little pin in there doesn't drop, so the needle valve's bad. But we're going to keep taking it apart and see what we got. Alright, here's the carburetor broken down. So I took the floats and put them in the parts washer to see if they would float, and they do. No air bubbles come out, so the floats are good. Bottom gasket for the bowl. This is our needle and seat, which is loose, that comes apart. The jet. Our cruddy bowl. I believe that's our fuel mixture, I think. This is our choke, which is really just an enrichener. And another adjustment. This might be air fuel. The other might be idle. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And one jet goes in the very bottom. And before you take a carburetor apart, when you have these adjustments, what I do is I write them down. Screw them in the whole way and see how many turns it takes. Usually measuring half turns is easier. And that way you can reset it to what it was originally, and hopefully at least will fire back up again and allow you to tune it from there. Okay, let's give her a bath. Well, we got our piece back. Took it to a local shop and had it straightened. And that's going to work out a lot better than what we had before. It's not completely perfectly straight, but see, it's got a little bit of a bend there, but I think it's going to be fine. So I'm going to try putting this back together and seeing if we can get the shifter to work. It was together with, I don't think I showed it in the other video, but these are just some hard rubber pieces that they were using as spacers. Probably, if it was me, I would use some type of metal collar or something in here to take up the space. But this apparently worked before, so I'm going to put it back together the way it was, see how it works, and if it's problematic, then we'll do something different. Alright, so the interesting thing, after multiple attempts at trying to film this, is if I have the wheel spinning when I change gear, it'll go into and out of gear pretty easy. If I just have it motionless, it just sits there and does nothing. Curious. I've not had one of these Albion gearbox models yet, so I'm learning as I go. There should be normally a neutral finder lever here that on a standard one you could just click that lever and it'll pop it into neutral no matter what gear you're in. It's a very handy feature. But this had to be removed because of this linkage being in the way, and so we don't have that. So until I have the engine running, I don't know how else I can test this to see how well it's working. This clearance down here is still not what I want it to be. But this is a pretty heavy cast piece. I don't know if I want to really try to bend much more, so we might just have to live with that little clang on the shifts, but it's in gear now. Not sure, and it should be in neutral. Oops, oh, lied to me again. Now, you'll see this move when we actually attain neutral. There, I bet you. Yes, so now we're neutral. Puzzling. Well, the carburetor is as clean as I'm going to be able to get it without an ultrasonic cleaner. Unfortunately, I don't have one yet. Didn't get as clean as I'd hoped, just soaking it in parts cleaner. But it's better than it was. most important part was the bowl, which was full of varnish before, especially down there in the well. It's about as clean as it's going to get. I've scraped it and sprayed it and soaked it and done everything I can, so I think it'll be fine. It might look a little worse actually in the video than it is. That's more discoloration that you're seeing there than actual crud still on it. The only concern I have with doing this is the O-ring here. I don't have one of these, so hopefully there's enough compression left in there that we don't get a vacuum leak when we put it back on. I had to get some fuel on, and we'll see about epoxying that back in so it doesn't come out, and we'll put it back together. And there's our carby all back together. I backed these each out, what I had recorded before, so we have the same settings. It should hopefully fire up and run based on that. And like I said, she didn't get as clean cosmetically as I hoped, but the insides are clean. That's what matters. The outside looks kind of grungy yet. I really need to get an ultrasonic cleaner. I was kind of researching them, but didn't have time to get that put together. So we'll try this. If we wind up having problems, then we might do something different. This inlet that pulled out with the fuel hose, I just gave that a good couple of taps with a wood block in between so I didn't damage it. And a couple of good wraps, and it's sticking in there really well. So I'm not going to bother worrying about epoxying it. It's not under pressure. It just allows fuel to flow in by gravity, so it doesn't have any pressure behind it. It's not likely to come out, and even if it did, it's just going to, well, I guess could potentially make a mess, but maybe set the bike on fire, but nah, it won't happen. I've given it some really good tugs, and we'll check it from time to time, but even with the hose on, pulling it with the hose, which is a little bit more leverage, it's not moving, so we're going to keep that the way it is, and just keep an eye on it for now. All right, we'll stick it back in the bike. Before we were locked solid. And now you can see we work as we should. It's a little lazy because it's not bolted down. That slide didn't move at all before we took it apart. So that's progress. All right, a few other notes. Went around and checked a bunch of things on the bike since it's been sitting so long. First thing, of course, was the tires. They had about 15 pounds of air in them. It's about half of what they need to have, at least. So, corrected that. I did check the oil level in the primary. This is the level. It is not a drain. You drain it by taking the cover off, so your level should be equal to this drain, or this screw head here. So you take that out. If anything dribbles out, you know you got enough in there, and this one has plenty. I did check the primary chain tension. It might be a little loose. It doesn't seem like it's disastrously so we're going to leave it for now. In case we don't have to go in there with the clutch or anything, we can just leave that alone. Rear brake, I adjusted that. Probably could use a little bit more, but we're going to try it as it is. Had a lot of travel in it. Tighten that nut up back here. Just roll that in, and now it grabs a little bit sooner than it did, but there's still some play there I could probably take up. We'll see how it does once we get it on the road. The oil level, check that. That was barely on the dipstick. I don't know if that was drained before it was put away or not, but very low. Put about a half a quart in there. The transmission, that's mostly grease in there, and I'm not going to worry about that right now. Let's see what else. We already checked the air cleaner. That was clean. The plug that's in it is kind of black and sooty. I'm going to get another one. I tried to match the number that was in it, and it's a bizarre Bosch plug part number that nobody carries around here, and I looked up what the plug should be on Hitchcocks, and it's a more common number that I think the plug in it isn't maybe exactly right, which might explain why it's kind of black. So we'll look at that as well. The front brake seems to be fine for travel, so we're not going to concern ourselves with doing anything there. And the other thing was the valve adjustment. So we're going to show you that. This is a old style piece. It's kind of a customization. These didn't have that, just a regular nut. So take this cover off, which is also a nice custom piece. I really like that. I put that on my own bike, Bob. Okay, so then we've got the two push rods and the adjustment in here, and I do not have these where they need to be, so I'll be right back. Okay, so there is no measurement spec with these. It's just a matter of, can you spin this by your hand, and is there any up and down movement? This one has a little play in it. I checked this one and it was fine. This one might be a little bit on the loose side, but it seemed to be a little noisier the day I checked it. So you don't want any clicking sound up and down. That one is probably right on the edge. So we'll probably let that go for now and see how it does. Better a little loose than too tight, but they seem fine. One final note for this installment. The name on the back, the mystery has been solved. This motorcycle was built by a fellow in India. He had it custom made to be this cafe bike, and he wanted to name it. And so he named it his wife's name, and it is pronounced Risha. So Risha the Enfield here has a name shared with a lovely young lady from India, although I think they now live in Switzerland. So the other thing we found out about Risha the Enfield, not the woman, is that Risha the Enfield was born August of 1973. I just got information back from the Royal Enfield Owners Club. They ran the VIN number for us, and that's when it was built. It was thought to be a 72 originally, but she is actually a 73. So a couple of problems or a couple of questions resolved there. And at this point, we are ready to add gas. I have to get a battery for it yet, and then we'll try to start it, see if we can make it go. So check back in a few days, hopefully. We'll have a new video on that. And I thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want to be alerted to the new videos as they come out. There'll probably only be one more, maybe two. We'll try to get it running and riding, and then maybe do a follow-up after that, after it's been on the road a little bit. But please check that box to subscribe, and hit the little bell if you want to be alerted. We'll talk to you soon.